Hey guys, how you going? I made a report to the Australian Federal Police about terrorism in Australia. About Dover Heights, the arson attack, the school being burnt down. I have an Australian Federal Police report number, and I would like to speak to your Australian Federal Police attaché. Is that okay? What? I can't hear you. It's too much. What? What? Make the call, yeah. Police attaché. Australian Federal Police attaché. Yeah, okay. I'll write my name. Okay. So yeah, I've just told them I've made a report on the Australian Federal Police website, the same stuff I gave to the New South Wales Caravan Parliament inquiry regarding Alex Rivkin and his interactions with me 10 days before his house burnt down. And I'm seeing if the Australian Federal Police attaché wants to interview me about the likely motive for these false flag terrorist attacks in Australia. The Parliament has been sitting on it now for a month, but they don't seem to be able to acknowledge my email. They acknowledge it on the phone, and the police don't want to investigate terrorism on Australian soil because it might go back to Mossad and might make the Prime Minister look very stupid for putting in these laws. Police attaché, I made a report. I'm not filming you, only me, for my legal reasons, okay? I'm not filming in the embassy, by the way. Also, the other thing we have to talk about is the time they gave illegal citizenship grants to my kids and falsely claimed my kids lived in Australia when they didn't, to get around Vietnamese nationality law. And then there's Vietnamese nationality law, Article 16.2. The parents don't agree on the citizenship of the child. Vietnam does not recognise citizenship grants done in this country, and my kids could forfeit their Vietnamese citizenship without my consent. So that's another issue we have to talk about, which is legally Hague Convention child abduction issues involving this government. I burnt my passport and renounced my citizenship in 2009, yet they're still trying to involve themselves in my life. Yeah, so they're calling up their police attaché now to see what's going to happen. See if they want to meet me and talk about my interactions with Alex Rivkin. 10 days before he burnt down his former residence, or someone did. It probably wasn't him. You know, they hire people for this kind of work, of course. But a loophole had to be closed that pedophile cults can't sue. As you've seen, the tweets just recently, all last week, it wasn't shadow banned. Now the shadow ban's been turned back on, as demonstrated by the video. So if I go in, I expect to come out within 1 hour and alive. Of course, I'm not distressed in any way. I'm not a threat to anyone. I'm just here to help the Australian government defend itself from false flag terrorism done by another state to get laws in to protect a minority group. My dad at lunch was talking with me about how civil rights actually began as individual rights, and now these collective rights are destroying people's civil liberties and personal rights of freedom of expression, freedom of thought, freedom of assembly. Basically, minority groups have got too much power, and you know, my dad, Herman Roborg, is a philosopher, my dad's friend, who was telling me he wrote a whole thesis about the history of human rights. And now, in order to get new rights for a pedophile cult, so they can't be vilified, no one can say BDS, the BDS, outside the Great Synagogue of Sydney, which has a doctrine of Metzitza prepared child penis sucking, boycott, divest and sanction the baby dick suckers, which now includes Israel, because on gov.il there was a paper, the Ministry of Health Metzitza prepared document, where the government of Israel says child penis sucking is safe and effective, and not that many kids die. So, you know, what's wrong with testing the infant's immune system really early on with potentially herpes? You know, if they're not strong enough to survive, it's just like sending them down the well in the movie 300. You know, I mean, as I said, there's Jewish doctors on my side, and there's even Jewish people. The statistics are, I think it's 2% of American population are Jewish, and between 8 and 10% of the Jewish population do this child abuse ritual. So I'm not going all Jews, I'm just going Chabad Lubavitch. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm just waiting here peacefully, trying to see what happens. See if they want to take the report of terrorism. Hello sir, how are you? As you can see, I'm not filming you, I'm only filming me for my own legal interests. I have lodged a report on the Australian Federal Police website giving a clear cause for motive for the terrorist attacks that recently occurred in Dover Heights. And after 10 days before the house was burnt down in Dover Heights with the whole F fuck the Jews written on it, I had interactions with the house's former owner, Alex Rivkin. He put me in an anti-Semitism report and said, because I don't love the president of the New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies raping kids, David Patel, I am anti-Semitic because you must love Jewish leaders having sex with Muslim children in Australia. David Patel, Sydney Morning Herald, justice denied for child rape victims. Anyway, so I baited him to my profile, and he saw a tweet which I found from the Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission, and that tweet said pedophile cults can't sue for hate speech in their vilification law manual. And the Jews realised there was a loophole in hate speech law that you can't attack people for being Jewish, but you can attack people for being in a cult that has mandated in the Talmud to suck children's penises. Babylonian Talmud, Shabbat 133b, any rabbi that doesn't put the baby penis blood into their mouth must be relieved of duty. I need to speak to the Australian Federal Police Attaché. Your country will be embarrassed if I can't have this meeting. It's about terrorism. I think it's the highest priority on the to-do list, is it not? You're Vietnamese. Can I please speak to the Australian Federal Police Attaché? You don't have the authority to say someone's doing a walk-in to tell you about a motive for a terrorist attack on Australian soil. Do you like Israel firebombing Australian properties? Do you like a foreign government doing terrorism on Australian soil, sir? Ask someone are you an Australian citizen? I know you're trying to give me stuff. Are you an Australian citizen, yes or no? You're not. Okay, then I need to get an answer from an Australian citizen if they want to meet me, and then if the answer is no, I'll quickly walk away. Or agreed? Can you get an... Sorry? Yeah, I know I need to have an Australian citizen say they want to interview me or ask me to leave, and then I will go immediately. What? You'll pass your message to your supervisor. Or why don't you write down my phone number? Give me the paper back. I'll write my number down. I had a paper a minute ago. Can I have the paper? How can you call me back if you don't have my number? No, I'm an Australian citizen, and you guys block consular assistance, and you're trying to abduct my children too, illegally, breaking Vietnamese citizen law as well. What? Sorry? I want to speak to the Australian Federal Police Attaché or consular assistance. But you have an Australian Federal Police Attaché on site, correct? You do. Okay. Well, can you get an Australian diplomat and DFAT to have a calm sit down with me and see the evidence? Can you try and get someone in DFAT who's an Australian citizen to have a polite meeting with me? I'm only raising my voice because there's no audio speakers here. It's very difficult. Right, oh wait a minute, yeah, just get an Australian to make a decision. Not only filming me, not filming you, don't worry. Okay. Well, since we're waiting, okay. So the facts of the case are, I ping Alex Rivkin, I give him shit for his anti-Semitism report where he says, you know, being against the OTO Kabbalah kiddie fiddlers is anti-Semitism. You can't be against the religion of Gnostic Catholic mass child orgies, as proven by the pinned tweet on Stop Boy Lover. And I'm in the anti-Semitism report over David Battelle and sending an email about the New South Wales Anti-Discrimination Board pedophile ring, Christopher Puplik, John Dowd, and of course David Battelle himself. There was a massive thread on Stop Boy Lover Twitter account back in the day, but it's very hard to find. I got dig through my old emails because it's search banned. And it had American lawyers commenting about it as well, how it's shocking that Australian Jewish elite president of the New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies never gets prosecuted for raping all of his kids. Then he comes back to Australia, he does interviews, and he's unrepentant, and he gets out of a trial because he's too ill to face trial. So being against him calling his own child rape victims anti-Semitic at a Monash University 2005 anti-Semitism conference is anti-Semitic, says the Executive Council of Jury, which is normalising pedophilia. Now the key point I have to make is in my stash, I have a call of myself and Peter Wertheim when I was doing battle with him because he was on the board of the New South Wales Anti-Discrimination Board that sued my father in the court case McKee vs Burns for share, and the description of the video my dad shared that was brought up in case law, the YouTube video, it actually said that Donald Anthony Gillespie and Michael O'Brien, aka Michael James _TV, were pedophiles before the Queensland Police charges them. So McKee vs Burns has us accusing Nancy Hennessy, and a lot to say. Okay, I have people coming out now, so I'm not filming you, I'm only filming me, camera going this way as you can see. Are you anonymous? Okay, so I have made a report on the Australian Federal Police website. I have a report number. I had personal interactions with Alex Rivkin, second in charge of the Australian Executive Council of Jury, and he reported a tweet on my account that I published documents from the Victorian Vilification Manual, 2nd edition, 2009, and it says pedophile cults can't sue because they do unlawful sexual activity. And these Jews in Chabad, their Talmud is child porn contraband under Section 91H of the Crimes Act, because any book that mandates, glorifies or encourages the sex with children is equivalent to child porn. Okay, and the old laws before the new anti-Semitism hoo-ha in Australia that you obviously know about, it would have been legal to stand outside a synagogue and say boycott, divest and sanction the baby dick suckers, because the Babylonian Talmud on their official website, Safari.org, in Shabbat 133b and A, but B is the best one, search for blood. It says any rabbi that neglects to suck the child's penis and do metzitzav peh, which is Hebrew for suck by mouth, or what the Jerusalem Post calls oral suction, must be relieved of duty. And there's other sources, the Rabbi Lubavitch, the coronavirus guidelines, where they said we're not going to socially distance rabbi lips from baby penis on a national.org, the main news website. So basically, the Jews felt very threatened because I had already organised a protest in Florida with Jason Brown outside the Chabad UCF synagogue. And it ended, he was charged with hate crime of saying rabbi suck baby penis, end quote, outside a synagogue, but they dropped all the charges because the rabbi was supporting an IDF soldier doing street violence, breaking senior citizens' arms on American soil, just like Hitler's brown shirts. Okay, so it ended with the ADL begging Sheriff John Mina in Orlando to drop charges against the National Socialists, because Chabad Lubavitch could have lost their 501c3 and couldn't have done tax-free religious raffles to fund the IDF and genocide in Gaza. So this is a huge motive, right? He self-identified as a pedophile, and you guys can do the subpoena to Twitter to prove it, because he said these government documents that say pedophiles can't sue trigger me as a Jew because I know Chabad Lubavitch is a pedophile cult. Now, Rabbi Raymond Apple, his address was put in the caravan in the bomb plot hoax you've heard about, right? He's on jwire.com.au. Ask a rabbi, is it okay to suck child penis? I mean, I've sent all the sources to the AFP. My name's Luke McKee. I've given my phone number and address. I want to know the Australian government will do the investigative work, subpoena my Twitter account. I told the caravan incident at parliament.nsw.gov.au a month ago, and one of the politicians in it, I think it was Robert, in the caravan inquiry into the Mossad false flag on Australian soil, he was saying all the anti-Semitic hate crimes attacks stopped once the new laws got passed, which would defend the religion of child penis sucking. Now, the government of Israel on gov.il, Ministry of Health, published a medical position paper on Metzitzah B'Peh, where they say we support the Talmudic doctrine to suck children's penises by mouth. So it's a new way to circumvent your hate speech laws. You're not attacking Jews, you're attacking pedophile cults. Now, can I get assurance is that the I don't want to know your name because it's recording, but are you connected to the Australian Federal Police? Oh, you're just a consular officer, okay. Well, you need to tell your Australian Federal Police attaché about this. Will you do so? Sorry? My email may have been messed with. My email address is Luke McKee. What's yours? My email address, okay, that's a Vietnam one. Now, I've had my email being messed with a lot. I emailed hotline at National Security about this, and half an hour on the phone they say they never got it. In America, so I told you before, my fans anyway, David Patel in Australia, because he's Jewish, he exercised his Jewish privilege to have sex with Muslim children in Australia and get no jail. And I helped make a film about it with a Sydney lawyer called Mark Tarrant that won 3 awards in Germany because we left out the Jewish bit. And it's called Lawyer in a Devil's Suit, and that's the background of my Twitter profile. And the same thing's happening in America right now with Howard Leventhal, the next Epstein. He's getting cops in Coconino County to do murder for hire against Francis Mendoza Keel, and he was a convicted drug dealer, just like the son of the board of the ABC. Oh, you know Ida Buttrose? Next, when you go home, you can watch Australian Drug Lords, episode 1, narrated by Gary Sweet, the same guy who made the police rescue TV show. I mean, I know, how old are you? You don't remember that? Well, the police rescue unit in Australia was going to be disbanded, right? And so what they did to keep the police rescue unit in business is on newspapers.com, and the sources for this you can remember: tiny URL. Tiny is in small, URL is in uniform resource locator on the internet /ASIO. You know what ASIO stands for, right? And then the word after that is pedos, all one word. So the pedophile who raped me at Sydney Grammar, Adrian Cooper, was convicted in 1984, and he got itsanohonour.gov.au to be a convicted pedophile for services to children. And he raped me at Sydney Grammar, and he raped a whole bunch of other kids too. It's a huge cover-up. So that's why Sydney Grammar has none of their newsletters on their website for the period of his employment. And people in ASIO dedicate their books to this child rapist, and he even appears in a book called Malcolm Turnbull, Born to Rule, by an ABC journalist, something Gibson, not Paddy Gibson, but I think something Gibson. You'll find the book, about the tent falling down on the former Prime Minister. Now, he was a convicted pedophile, okay, and he got Order of Australia for services to children, and the New South Wales Teachers Federation, in their newsletter, was promoting the bushwalks with this pedophile. It's all in that dossier I gave you, tinyurl.com/ASIO pedos. The other issue is a consular thing, is does Vietnamese recognise dual citizen grants given inside Vietnam? They don't. They don't. If you want to be a dual citizen and have it recognised with Australia and have it recognised by Vietnam, you must apply overseas. If you Google burn passport.mp4, you will see me in 2009 burning my old child passport and putting forms of 152 in from memory to renounce my citizenship. claiming hardship exemption on the costs. I didn't think I was Australian. You guys, behind my back, reactivated my citizenship and then gave citizens grants to my children with falsely claiming they were living in Cabramatta in order so the Vietnamese government may accept their dual citizens. My children have never left Vietnam. What do you call it when you produce fraudulent documents with fake addresses on it for the purposes of moving children across international borders? That's 2 out of the 3 definition of human trafficking. You don't have under Vietnam nationality law 16.2, if the parents don't agree on the citizenship of the child, it must only be Vietnamese. Vietnam does not recognize the citizenship grants done to my children. And I don't know how good your ASIS is, with Catherine Burns, a Mossad agent. In the court case McKee versus Burns against my father from my gay stalkers, a gay judge in Australia ruled all Vietnamese internet users, like my dad was, he gave his plane ticket to the judge, it's on my Twitter, are under Australian law. And Vietnamese internet users must not vilify homosexuals like Mark J. Newton and Peter Trong, who went on ABC radio and called the Russian police homophobic. On the agenda with the woman who writes the book about troll hunting, Ginger Gorman, a Dutch Jew. And so my dad shared a video about that, and in the video's description it predicted Rip and Roll Guys, now Michael James _TV, right, was a pedophile because he was offering, give me money and I will give you access to people in Queensland youth who will give you access to children in government custody. He was selling access to children on a GoFundMe. That's why I was accusing him of being suspect before the Queensland police charged him with child rape. So McKee versus Burns proves that hate speech laws are there to protect active pedophile rings who are actively raping children according to the Queensland police. These people did the selfie with the Child Protection Minister and Johnny Howard. Okay, Mike, and get this. And Channel 7 News ran a GoFundMe for the pedophiles to pay off their principal. Channel 7 News Gold Coast, it's my biggest tweet with 50,000 views. So your government, your judge said we don't have jurisdiction to prosecute Australian citizens who rape children overseas. Now, you know that's bullshit, right? Because the Australian Federal Police has an overseas child sex tourism tip-off page on it, does it not? You don't know? Okay, well it does. And the law's on the book. So the judge said in the courtroom, in Gay Pride Month, I went to the Indonesian embassy to report these rapes happened on their soil, and your government covered up the rape of children on Indonesian soil months ago. Now, the other thing that happened is the police decided for the sake of gay pride, we have to withhold the use of the date rape drugs from the jury. A date rape drug is called tazimapram for gay pride, because we can't have the biggest gay media people who run Q News go down for raping Catholic boys just before a gay marriage vote. So the first union as a result of the gay marriage plebiscite in Australia is the penis of Donald Anthony Gillespie into a 14-year-old boy, Chiron Reid, from St. Joseph's, Nudgee. That is the first court-recognised union as a result of the gay marriage plebiscite, a child rape. And that pedophile is now too big to fail, because if he goes down, there'll be a royal commission into state-sponsored child rapes for gay pride. So that's my court case, McKee versus Burns. Why did I tell you that? Do you really think I would want my children to be Australian citizens? Of course not. I was never involved in the process, and these grants are illegal. I will be taking actions through other embassies, and you know I'm not bluffing, right? To petition the Vietnamese authorities to apprehend your government's attempted human trafficking and breach of the Hague Convention and Vietnamese citizenship law. Vietnamese citizenship law, it decides, the first thing in the Vietnamese citizenship law is Vietnam only recognises one citizenship for the Vietnamese people, and that is Vietnamese. With dual national marriages, the parents can choose one citizenship for the child, or if the child lives overseas and the grant is given when they're overseas, only in that case will Vietnam recognise dual nationality. Australian government deceptively and deliberately falsely claimed my children are lived in Cabramatta and my children have never left the country. False travel documents for moving children overseas to trick Vietnamese customs officials that the citizenship grant is above board as a dual citizenship is illegal. I demand that you revoke those citizenship grants because it was never done with my consent, and also I had already renounced my citizenship. I need to renounce my citizenship because I'll be getting a new one soon. And as you know, you can't renounce citizenship if there are dependent children, and those dependent children on your register should not have been put there, and they were not put there by me. You are interfering with the life of a political UNHCR, in 2010 at least, registered political refugee from Australia and New Zealand. The UN actually got lawyers to confirm New Zealand is the 8th state of Australia because they don't make their own laws. Under the bilateral agreement with Australia and New Zealand, that's in your immigration acts, referred to as the backing of warrant scheme, you can arrest people in New Zealand for crimes that no one ever thought of in the Beehive, and that's legally called non-dual criminality extradition without due process. So I am wanted for Australia's rarest crime, that former Communist Party of Australia member, Greens, Lee Rhiannon, at the law's inception, said only corrupt police would use. And the bill for the law, with the politicians criticising it, has been censored from the New South Wales Parliament website. If you go to New South Wales Parliament, bills, all bills up 97, letter C on the alphabet divider, and then go to Crimes Amendment in brackets, Police and Other Law Enforcement Officers Bill 2002. There's no second reading of the bill on there because this is a law that's been used against people who know too much about police corruption. Catherine Judith Burns is a Mossad agent linked to multiple false flags. You know those pedophiles I talked about before in Queensland, who's now currently working at Tambourine Mountain State High School? Michael James _TV launched hashtag I'll ride with you. Obama and Ben Shapiro jumped on that hashtag on different sides. It was a fake news story, just as fake as the terrorist anti-Semitism hate crimes attacks that I reported to the Australian Federal Police, and was confirmed as such. Okay? Catherine Burns bragged about it in Israel at a Mossad terrorism conference 1 year after a Mossad operative was expelled from Australia for allowing the use of Australian passports to do illegal extrajudicial murders in a hotel room in Dubai. Do you remember that one? Oh, I got a long memory. So what I put in the police report is not far-fetched considering the history of terrorism done by the State of Israel. Now, Australian houses have burnt to the ground because Jews wanted to make a new law to protect their baby penis sucking cult, and the rest of the world, if you don't expose it and do your job, will. So I'm kindly asking you to make sure the police attaché do their job and do a subpoena on all the censorship requests from my account, and you will see 10 days before. I know Alex Rivkin blocked me, so he got the message, right? You understand? 10 days before, I tell him there's a loophole in the hate speech law. 10 days they're doing false flag terrorism to plug the loophole. It's pretty. It's extremely circumstantial, don't you think? Considering the history of these people involved. Now the Sydney Lynch siege, Catherine Burns lost all of her mobile SMS messages, and she's now second in charge of ASIS. Do you know what ASIS is? Australian Security Intelligence Service, Australia's CIA. You obviously know what CIA is. She covered up all of her messages from the Sydney Lynch siege terrorist false flag, right? And now Chris Minns has lost all the notes of what was happening with the caravan bomb plot hoax, if you're following what's happening in Parliament with the news. So everyone in Australia isn't buying the fake news. Another thing, Your Prime Minister has got egg on his face for allowing these all being manipulated to pass these laws, but he wasn't manipulated. He is best friends with Dr. Gary Lindenthal. He writes papers saying Australian citizens who are aid workers in Gaza are human shields for Hamas, and the Australian citizens must be killed without due process. Now, so you understand what I'm saying, right? Dr. Gary Lindenthal has wrote a paper saying women and children and foreign aid workers are human shields for Hamas, and the principles of distinction do not apply, and Australian citizens must be killed overseas just for trying to give aid. Now, I was making noise about that before Australian citizens were deliberately targeted and blown up with AH-64D Hellfire missiles. You can see that poor girl from the Hell's Kitchen to the Australian passport, blood all over her face. And I was warning it was going to happen before it did. So ignoring me is getting Australian citizens killed. So can you please stop allowing Australian citizens to be killed by this Zionist regime? That on the main government website says we love sucking children's penises. Okay, so you've got the gist. Every single link that's relevant. It's only like about one page of text with Twitter links. Every link needs to be forensically archived to support my claim. And Gary Lindenthal is his association for doing foreign interference with the Australian Prime Minister needs to be investigated. You knew about this a year ago, but you did nothing. Okay, and a doctor who was seeking immigration points to get an Australian visa his mate gave me 4 pills of andestodon. That caused lower body paralysis, and I had every toe on my left foot broken last time I came here, apart from the two big ones, blood coming out everywhere. Now, I can't prove that because the doctor was smart and took the pills out of the wrapper. It's premeditated. Just take your anti-vomiting pills, don't worry. I trusted the doctor. Big mistake. But when they took me to another hospital and tried to give me 12 vials of Amazon 1.25, I have the heart scan to prove I had a suppressed heartbeat as low as 42 on the SpO2 meter, but it was low. And if you give that drug to people with a reduced heart rate, it says on the label it can kill. So for the second attempt last time I came here when I had the consular crisis, I've got the forensic proof overseas that I could have been attempted murder. I'm not making a big deal of it because I don't shit in my own nest, but I don't want to have any trouble. I don't plan to cause any violence with anyone. But I'm obviously pissed. If Benjamin Netanyahu is talking about a mental patient who's got all Zionist friends on his Facebook burning a synagogue's door just because Australian politicians are saying all the anti-Semitism, hate crimes stopped once we got our new laws as an aftershock to try and dial down that criticism in the Parliament inquiry in New South Wales. You've got Benjamin Netanyahu who probably knows who the hell I am, let's be honest, okay? So I finished my rant. I want this information to go to the police attaché, and I want them not to censor my account, but to get all the data of people who try to report my account, especially in the 2 weeks before the first arson attack with Alex Rybkin, not Rybkin, but Rybkin, you know, the guy second in charge. Another thing I want to say is I have an audio tape of the Australian Executive Council of Jury Chief, Peter Wertheim, saying, I will be the first to report any Jew to the police who is doing this arcane ritual of sucking children's penis. And so I emailed them and said, I have a whole list of Jews who do. In Australia, you have Rabbi Herschel Goldman. Rabbi Herschel Goldman's in the news for chopping off 2 Jewish child penises completely, then sucking the stump of what's left and filling his mouth with the blood as the Talmud commands. He was using the Morgen clamp. The makers in America went bankrupt for removing children's penises. He's in the Age and the mainstream news saying I use ads saying I use this banned circumcision instrument. The media talked about a ritual being done in the courtroom, the child penis sucked by mouth ritual. But the judges, because they just love kosher child sex, removed all of it. So I'm talking about this is actually going on in Australia, and stuff needs to be done about it. Thank you for your time. You're gonna pass this up the food chain? I have to go to work now anyway. What's this? Vietnam, yeah, AFP. Oh, sorry. Yeah, my phone, you guys have my phone number? You want to get that back to me so I remember the email? You can write my phone number down. Okay, so this is the Twitter account where it all went down, okay? There's an Australian Federal Police support number on the website. You can find it based on my email address, this email address, with all the links. And end the ZB951 visa. That's a visa, you know that? Immigration is meant to list all visa categories and their statistics in their immigration annual report. But they don't for this visa, because there'll be a huge spike in 2007 when all the sex workers had their visas cancelled because immigration went computerized. Remember Amanda Vanstone, the big beast? She's a legend. She linked the university computers to the schools, and seven, five. Okay, you got everything there. So what happened was the only way the sex workers could stay in Australia was if they're put on dating sites, and hundreds of white males got instant replacement migration, assimilation, were framed up with rape. And you know what? When Catherine Burns did the false flag, a terrorist attack by having an Australian spy, Heidi Hendry, who stalked me in Vietnam, end up at Lassen, the company who makes the software for Medibank Private. You sold it, the password, to the Russians, or did an inside job, and I got the data. So I know what's your foreign minister's name? His name's not Penny Wong, it's Penelope. I have all of her medical records, thank you very much. I also have the names in my pocket on my USB of every single Australian spy trained at ADFA. Okay, I'm the real deal. And if anything happens to me, public. Okay, now. I also have a docs of every single sex worker in Australia, because sex workers were registering as foreign students to get the cheap healthcare and STD checks every 2 weeks. And that's how I identify them all. So hundreds of Australian men were framed up by rape, so police could overrule immigration as the people who have, that's right, you don't have the last say on who stays in Australia, cops do. Criminal Justice Witness Stay Visa, that's CB951 on my Twitter account. So your country made me a political refugee, an formerly Australian citizen, for knowing about corruption in your immigration department. I'm the good guy. So I'm going to go now, I'm going to go to work, but please make sure that the data from that Twitter account is given to FBI, and that the people truly responsible for arson and terrorism on Australian soil are prosecuted. You have a probable cause and a motive for the attack. Those attacks, the loophole needed to be closed. And remember, I was a threat because I have already demonstrated the power of the Jews can't prosecute anyone for hate speech if they say these magic words, because they'll be cross-examined, they'll find out that it's a pedophile cult, it's not a hate crime to be against pedophiles, you understand? So I'm not going after all Jews. There's good Sephardic Jews that are fighting Chabad Lubavitch in Hungary, because Chabad Lubavitch, do you really think they're selling kosher meals and kosher rooms in Vietnam? There's not that many Jews here, let's be honest. There's a stupid number of Chabad Lubavitch synagogues around the world, and they're kind of like, they're not what they appear, in my opinion. So thank you for your time, goodbye. I'm going to go now. I never filmed you, the camera's always only faced this way, okay? Right, see you later. And I should tag them on my Twitter. Let's stop the video.